Viserai is inched slowly towards Living Legend, and you can thank this guy right over here. That's right, today I'm joined by Adam Cook, aka PQ Champ, aka Chants and Daggers, or just, I like to call him my pal. That's what I like to call him. Adam, thanks for being here, dude.
Buddies? Yeah, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
glad to be here.
Well, obviously, it would be unfaithful of me as a Viserai player to not congratulate you face to face as virtually as we can. So congratulations, dude. That's
Thank you.
Huge success taking Viserai to a win at a PQ week 1 too, where the world is unknown. We're all just poking and feeling at things, trying to figure it all out. So to see that
Absolutely.
a committed Viserai player such as yourself can take it to finish. I have yet to put myself on any leaderboard with Viserai, so I have to ask you, how does it feel? Is it all sunk in? Knowing that one day Viserai is going to hit Living Legend and you're going to scroll through the honor roll and your name's going to be there forever in the books. How's that feel?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, it feels fantastic. Feels wonderful. As you said, like, you know, fellow Viz player, I've been playing Viserai for a long time. And that means, let's just say a lot of second places at major competitive events. So let's just say the monkey's been on my back for a while, and I think I finally got there. We finally got on that list, so I can sleep well at night.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sometimes it just keeps you up at night. You're like, I gotta get there. And now I feel like, was that like the most peaceful sleep you had that night coming home? Where you're just like, dude, I'm done. I'm not gonna play tonight. I'm just gonna go to sleep, dude.
All right, kidding me, man. My mind was racing
until
really? Like 3 a.m.
See, mine was too after my pro quest, where it was like, I can't believe I did this, or I can't believe I blocked this way. I suck. And so, yeah, racing for different reasons, but neither here nor there for sure. So we won't be doing a full, like, top to bottom, every card gets a full explanation deck tech thing here. But I just basically wanted to do just kind of a deeper dive into some individual cards that kind of sparked my interest, especially when it pertains to how this deck is just different, right? Because we're so used to seeing Royal Viserai, you know, you've got the Mauve Sky Shrill dagger sword thing going on, and this is not that list. So obviously we're gonna talk about the things that make it different, right?
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
But so yeah, I of course first want to point out too that if people want to have more in-depth, and you live stream regularly, so if people want that real meaty, hearty, down to the wire, you know, full deck tech things, please check the link in the description. There's a link to Adam's YouTube channel, Chants and Daggers. Click on that, subscribe. He'll take care of you as far as all the ins and outs of this list. Today we're gonna dissect a few fun, interesting things that I feel like were the standout pieces that took you home. Before I even look at a card, because like I just mentioned, this is a very different list. What's kind of the cliff notes? What's like the Viserai TURTLEBURST for dummies, like 2-sentence, like what does this deck even do? Like what's the whole point?
Yeah, I think like, well, let's just go. There's kind of 2 modes, but the primary mode is basically build Rune Chants. It's in large dominated attack. Make more Rune Chants.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you know, your opponents only have so much armor that they can take, that they can use to block these dominated attacks. So, we're just trying to punch them hard. We're trying to overwhelm them. And you know, that's kind of facilitated by the Rune Chants that we make along the way. So
dude, gotta love Rune Chants. That's why you play Viserai. He's cool, he's badass looking, but Rune Chants, come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on,
you know, it's you know, the Rune Chants are what, you know, got us into Runeblade in the first place. Like, I'm assuming it's true for you, but it was true for me, right?
Yeah, for sure. It does everything warriors wish they could with Rune Chants. So it's like,
with a little extra sprinkle of magic. You know?
Exactly.
So
was this so? Because this deck list is so vastly different from what has previously been popular or even kind of somewhat successful, I guess you could say, you know, like I mentioned, the Royal Viserai lists, Rosetta Thorn was a big thing. So a deck like this during that time probably wasn't going to make a huge standout or maybe even trump in success of that. Things are shifting, no more Rosetta Thorn. But so was this a list that you were kind of brewing over that course. Rosetta Thorn was still in your back pocket. You could do all of that, but this was still something you were planning with, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good point. We mentioned before, but looked up the first list that had TURTLEBURST in the title, and it was actually 1 year ago to the day. So
Insane.
far before Rosetta Thorn was gone. But I always just like to look at my cards, and you see Arcanite Ascendency there. It's beautiful. It's purple. It's iconic. Like our Flesh and Blood Discord still uses the artwork for its picture art.
Exactly.
So like when you think Flesh and Blood, like it's one of the key pieces of art. It's like, why don't we ever play this card? And it just didn't fit into the old archetypes, because you're just going so fast, you're going aggressive, you're blowing all your rune chants, and so basically I just wanted to make the card good, playable, a staple in a deck. And so, yeah, I think that, I guess as evidenced by this PQ win, I think I've finally done that. So
amazing.
That's the true mission that feels accomplished.
So this wasn't something you were just like, this seems fun, like a month or two ago. This is like passion meets like, labor meets love, and all these things culminate to, sometimes it takes a year before, and when we'll talk a little bit about Ascendancy here in a minute, because that's definitely one of the standout pieces that I want to look at, because this list to me feels like the breakout that Michael Hamilton had with Wounded Bull, where it's like, what? No one plays that card. But it's like, maybe in the background he'd been playing it for 7 months, and he just was waiting for the proper time for that window to open up for it to actually make sense in the rest of the field. I very highly doubtful that you go to sleep, wake up the next day, be like, Wounded Bull. No, it's something you brew on these things for a long time, and they just have to, the perfect storm just has to brew alongside it. So, but first, before we get too deep into that, because I love Arcanite Ascendancy, we're gonna talk about that. But starting at the top here, you run Scepter of Pain, which, I mean, a little Easter egg, of course, is that I spoiled this card, which means I had to sit with this for like 3 weeks before releasing it. And this was just before Rosetta Thorn was about to be banned with Briar. And so I knew the Runeblade community was scrambling. People were like, what are we going to do? And here I am with this thing that I like can't talk about yet. And I was like, this is not what people are wanting right now. They're going to be
not Rosetta Thorn 2.0.
Right? Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, maybe Reaping Blade. Maybe we go back to Nebula Blade. And here I am like, I have to show this to people soon. I have to tell people about this weapon, and they're going to be so sad. But I think you and I both know, like, I have a completely different relationship with this weapon now. I adore this.
Oh, it's totally evolved. Right?
It has become something so perfect for this kind of list. So obviously, I want to hear your thoughts on it when you saw it, because you'd been brewing this type of a deck for a while. Was this like light bulb? This is exactly what we needed to keep like things going, resources from being wasted. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Now, I was a little bit more hard-headed at first. Like, it wasn't like a light bulb, The original list used a Reaping Blade, and then I noticed that like sometimes my hands would get clogged up. I wouldn't be able to do anything with my cards. And I'm like, well, I can't like pitch this to anything. So that's actually the secret value. There's two major points about Scepter of Pain that make it so good. One, it's a pitch outlet. What you're trying to do in this deck is dig further and further through your deck. So to find your key cards, your kind of like your mini combos, your buffs, your big attacks, you want to put those together and send it. But what happens if your opponent just like dominates you and leaves you stranded with like 3 cards in your hand? Maybe you can play like one and then you're stuck with a couple, but like Scepter of Pain, say you got 2 red cards that you just don't want to see right now, you can just pitch 2 reds and send 1 ping,
right,
and and you can kind of dig further into your deck.
Yeah,
the second.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah. No, the second part of it is I've heard people call this like coronet poke. because it's like a tiny tax on your opponent.
Yeah.
You're paying 2, you send 1 arcane, and you're like, do you want to do you want to do you want to pitch 1 card to prevent this 1 arcane that's going to make me a Rune Chant?
Right. Especially if you've
And
got 8 Rune Chants and this is the 9th one that you need for a 9th blade for free or something, right? It's just like, do I?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're like, do I want to pitch or do I want to keep this 4-card hand that maybe it's got a pommel with it or something like that?
Right, right.
So
Exactly.
but you ask your opponents an important question, and it's even more important for matchups like Victor, where you're trying to OTK them, and then every single damage that they take is 1 less damage that you have to do in 1 big chunk at the end of the game. So it's really invaluable. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I mean, again, like you said, I was hard-headed about it, but now it's in the main board of at least the deck that I run that's similar to yours, and of course the one that you run. So we have contingency plans in Reaping Blade and things like that for when, especially when the dragons were about. But this is, I don't see this going anywhere. If I could run 2, I would. If it made sense to run 2 just because I love to look at it, then I would. But
I know.
I like my bloodied oval as well, which used to be kind of like, what is that? But it's a no brainer, right? Like when you need an extra, when you have the one hand full, it's kind of like,
it's the second best Runeblade card in heavy hitters.
Straight up, yeah. Right. Which hopefully we'll talk about this first best one here in a minute. But you mean, speaking of Rune Chants, right? Scepter of Pain asks your opponent that kind of minuscule question: do you want me to make a Rune Chant or not? So, I mean, whether they let you do it or not, you are also the whole point of the deck is to build Rune Chants, right? So you've got plenty of Rune Chant generators in the form of like, let's see, what do we have here? We've got Blessing of Occult, which is fantastic. I'll list them and then we'll talk about them. Blessing of Occult, Runeblade Incantation, the OG Read the Runes. You can't live without it in a deck like this. And then kind of undervalued in the past and starting to make its rounds back into to discussions here is Runeblood Barrier, which, I think there is another key piece that kind of makes these all cohesive. But I'm curious though, because they all function, right? Like they all generally create 3 Rune Chants except for Runeblood Barrier, Occult, Read the Runes, and Incantation. So obviously these things need to be decided. When are you going to play it, right? Do I want to pay the 1 for 3 Rune Chants next turn? Do I want to pay the 1 for 3 Rune Chants in 3 turns? Or do I just want to get a free 3 Rune Chants right now in the form of Read the Runes? So I'm just curious what your thought process is. Is there one that you favor more than the other? Or is it really just like board state style? This dictates what I need to do right now. It's Blessing of Occult time. I have Incantation and Occult in hand. Which one am I pitching for in favor of the other? How do you answer those kinds of questions?
I think I can I'll try not to be too long-winded about it. Okay. But
it's deep, right? It's a pretty deep,
Yeah. And some of it's matchup dependent. I will say that Read the Runes, all of these cards give you 3 Rune Chants. Yeah. It's just when do you want them? That's the question, right? And that question does differ a lot. So if you're playing in an aggressive opponent and you need those Rune Chants now, you're looking for Read the Runes or Blessing of the Occult. If you're playing a slower matchup where you actually want to trigger Viserai's ability to make more Rune Chants, then probably Runeblood Incantation is going to be, you're going to want to play that first into something else, so it becomes much more valuable. I think the only thing I want to say about the Rune Chant generators really is Blessing of the Occult. Blessing of Occult was really... no one wanted to play this because it basically is the same thing as Read the Runes, but no go again.
Right.
But in this deck, you really want, if you're on your tempo plan or your kind of your bursty aggressive plan, you really want Rune Chants every single turn. So you don't want to just send them all this turn and not have any left. So there's some instant speed shenanigans that you can use to get Blessing on the board, but then still attack, and then you'll be completely refreshed for the next turn. So I think if you dig just a little deeper than the surface, you can find a lot of value in this card.
Definitely. Yeah, this is another one of those things where it's kind of in line with Scepter of Pain, where they're like, we're going to give you this card. It's not really going to make sense today, but,
Yeah.
maybe a month to 3 months later, you're going to covet this card. And it truly, again, has become one of those cards where, like, how did this just sit in my bulk for like 2 months before me just really feeling like this value was right here this whole time? I know you and I have spoke privately in like Discord and stuff about like, you can creep.
It is a rare card.
It is rare. Yeah. Which
it must be powerful.
Right. Exactly. And the things that you can do off of creepers with this to, say like we were talking earlier, you can block with, you're going to some point might have to block with creepers. And if one of these happens to line up in your hand, might as well get the value off the creepers. And then at the start of your turn, you just got the free 3 Rune Chants. You didn't have to wait too long for those 3 Rune Chants to pop up. So there's definitely some fun business to be had with Blessing of the Occult. But yeah, so I didn't think there was like, oh, I love this one more than this one. It's definitely situational, contingent on what's being thrown at me. What's the life total situation? How much more digging do I think I need to do? Sometimes you're like, dude, I haven't seen X card in a while. It's probably going to be in my next hand. Let me go ahead and set this blessing up real quick because I might need it. Whereas incantation turn 1, dude, grasp, incantation, Scepter of Pain or something. It's like, Arsenal pass. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. Great turn.
Yeah, good solid turn.
10 out of 10. Would do again.
Yeah. Your opponent's like, all right, cool. Like, what are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 turns later, you're in trouble, buddy. So
yeah, that's right.
But yeah, man, that's obviously these are, we're talking about things like Blessing of Occult, Rune Blood Incantation, and Read the Runes. These are all 2 block cards, which I think has kind of been not the bane of Viserai's existence, but definitely something that causes him to have to balance his priorities, right? Because in his hero ability, we want to be favored into it, right? Because it's saying whenever you play a non-attack action card, you get rewarded whenever you play the next Runeblade card. So we want plenty of non-attacks. Therefore, we're going to have a ton of 2 blocks in the deck, right? So, but there's something about this list where you're adding even more 2 blocks than the standard Viserai list in the form of Sloggism, which is quite a spicy card that people don't talk about at all. Like, we're talking Welcome to Wraith, OG, like people play Nimbleism all day still today because it's a 0
That's
cost
right.
give plus
its counterpart.
Right.
Yeah.
But this, I'm curious. I know that I think I can piece together in my head, but for those that are watching, they're like, what is this dude thinking? I need to hear his thoughts. How did you decide to put Sloggism in, and how like critical is it to the overall plan for this deck to function?
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about cards like Wounded Bull earlier, but if there's any card that's my Wounding Bull, it's Sloggism. I absolutely love this card. It for a while it went down to a 2 of, and I was like, no, I need 3. So let me just kind of organize some thoughts like shortly on it. But a lot of decks can't really play this card in their deck because it's a 3 cost and it gives you +6 on your next attack that costs 2 or more. But if you're using 2 cards to play this buff, that means you also probably need, 1 other card in hand or arsenal and 1 to 2 more cards to play it. So that means basically you have to have not blocked to play Sloggism and then play out your attack. But the beauty of Sloggism in this deck is that we're playing a lot of cards that have Rune Chant reduction. So basically, as long as we've got enough Rune Chants on the board, our attacks cost nothing. So you can kind of easily play Sloggism on just like a 3-card hand. So Sloggism, any blue in the entire deck, and then your attack, and you can send a very threatening attack.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's +6. So especially as you mentioned, like when you have the cost reduction on things like, Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath, which that's a sink below. Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath. It's very simple. You're looking at 9 Rune Chants, which you're making turn 2. You're probably well over that often. Turn 2, you're looking at 8 to 10 rune chants anyway. And then, of course, as we mentioned, Ascendancy, which has that cost reduction. So your two big powerhouse attacks that you want to pair with Sloggism, it's not asking you to also pay for that big powerhouse attack. It's saying, hey, you pay for me, and then we'll split the difference, and we'll just hit for 45 damage in rune chants and physical, and and mid to late game, it's like, dude, I don't know what to do. I have to chunk my hand, and then they'll still take like upwards of 8 to 10 damage, oftentimes just in physical damage. So
absolutely,
So I mean, it definitely doesn't mean you're a crazy person for adding this. It makes the most sense, but on paper, when you're just looking at it, you're like, dude, what the hell? No one plays this card. What is this?
Well, I do have to mention that at Viserai's roots, Sloggism was one of the cards back whenever Arcane Rising first came out, and their Crucible wasn't out yet, or when I entered the game, Crucible Unlimited wasn't out yet. So Mavrian Skies, I think a single copy was like $15. So I was like, I can't do that just yet. But you know what was cheap? Sloggism and all the Welcome to Wraith that I had opened. So, and then you're looking over at Arcanite Ascendency and you're like, hey, that's got to dominate. It's a Majestic. I think LSS wants us to play this card.
Yeah, for sure.
So, So it's kind of at the roots of Viserai. But as soon as Mavrian Skies came out, it really let us do a lot more things. So it just kind of fell into the darkness alongside Arcanite Ascendancy.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
back, right? Just like Viserai, we're coming back around, baby. Yeah, no, this is, and it makes so much sense, And my particular list, I go a little bit more defensive, but everything in me is saying, no, you should be playing Sloggism and doing awesome, crazy things with Sloggism. So I'm still trying to find, like, how can I build a sideboard, like a mini sideboard package of what your deck does and have the best of both worlds. I can't crack it yet, but maybe we'll cross that bridge one day. Well, that's super cool, and it makes a lot of sense hearing it come from you. And obviously the results that you got to come home with a gold foil can tell the story in itself. But aside from that being a 2-block, there's another 2-block in this deck that kind of goes hand in hand with some of the Rune Chant generators that we were talking about earlier in the form of Sonata Galaxia. So again, this was another one of those cards where it was thrown in my lap, and at the time, again, Viserai was not looking to play a ton of auras. Maybe Incantation was okay, like on occasion in the Royal Vis list. So I was like, this card does nothing. I'm not sure what this is all about. Why would we why are we tutoring auras? This, like, what, why?
Yeah.
So for you, again, going back, you'd been brewing a list with this nature involved. How did you feel about when this card came about? Was it similar to Scepter of Pain where you were like, maybe, or was it like, no, this is exactly, we needed this?
This was an instant ad, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It was an instant ad.
Nice.
But I say it's an instant ad, but I'm still only playing two of it.
I noticed that
in my deck.
Yeah.
So, and the reason is not because I don't love the card, but it's just because I feel like 2 is enough.
Sure.
We can get the job done without 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the thing too. And we've talked about some of the, why are we running 1-ofs and 2-ofs, which I hope to pick your brain about here in a second, but that makes sense, right? Like if you need, I've certainly drawn into more than I've needed and been like, damn, I don't need this right now. Block with it feels bad, but also like,
Galaxia is basically this single card completely unlocked this deck as being viable in the meta. And something that Viserai used to have with Bloodshea Skeleton, rest in peace, was a modal game plan. So you can choose what you want to do. Do you want to be aggressive, or do you want to be or do you want to play OTK? And it totally depends on the matchup. But one thing that after Skeleton was gone, we had to rely mainly on aggression. Because you simply couldn't get enough rune chants quickly enough to I don't know, set up these big attacks or to OTK someone before they can deal enough damage to kill you. But Galaxia will allow you for these insane, like Rune Chant generating spike turns where you can generate 15, even 17 Rune Chants just in one turn using Mordred Tide, fetching Rune Blood Barrier, all the Viserai triggers.
Mm-hmm.
So when the more and more you mess around with it, you're just like, oh my god, like this card is incredible, and it just slots right into this deck that it wants to play Rune Blood Barrier, it wants to play Blessing of the Occult. Those are all valid targets, and the last card that I don't even know if we have it slated to talk today, but Looming Doom is in the deck.
Oh, we're
And
talking about Looming Doom.
okay, good. Looming Doom was that last card that I've played with it a lot. I've always had like one in the deck just because like it's a beautiful card. It's a lot of flavor. It helps you close out games.
Mm-hmm.
But the cost and the fact that it did not have Gogan were pretty prohibitive. And so Galaxia completely unlocked that card. So um, I think that Galaxia kind of shows the success of LSS's new expansion slot system, where basically one card for a class can like completely unlock old cards that have been printed, like Blessing, like
Mm-hmm.
Looming, like Runeblood Barrier, that just don't have a place anywhere, and it can just bring them back into the fold and make new play styles completely playable.
Absolutely,
So
dude. Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude,
it's fantastic.
nail on the head. I mean, and on
Right?
top of that, it's probably one of the more beautiful cards that Viserai, or I guess any Runeblade, has ever
Yeah,
gotten to chunk in their deck. So all the blues, all the
absolutely.
purples, it just like it makes the deck purr on a list
Oh
like
yeah.
this. So
Oh yeah.
we've
Totally.
I know you have done some nutty things with this card, and so have I, where it's just like you were mentioning, just making stacks of Rune Chants in one turn, and then just having the other key component like the big pop off turn immediately
Yeah.
right after or already in hand, where you're like,
Yeah.
this, I couldn't have paid for this otherwise. I couldn't have pulled off this ninth blade
Yeah.
without this Galaxia to pay for to go fetch the
Absolutely.
other thing to
Yeah.
trigger the thing. And
Yeah.
so, oh man, talk about waking up a deck that previously really would have worked just fine, but definitely there were some holes
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
format. Yeah, so
Did you have any idea that it could do such crazy
dude,
things?
no, I was like, why would anyone? I guess you can go get your incantation. I guess that's like all I thought. I
Yeah.
was like, it's cool. I guess I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but now it's again another card that is completely. I've changed my perspective on, and I absolutely love. Can't live without it. At
Yeah.
least in the style of deck we play. So
Yeah.
speaking of you only running two of this card, there's a few cards in the deck that you run one copy of, which I'm pretty curious about. And starting off is, most Viserais can't live without 9 Mavrian Skies in their deck, maybe even a few lead the charges. But this list runs
Yeah.
a lonely red Mavrian Skies. What was the thought process behind that? And is it like, oh, the one is necessary, and if I cut it, I feel like I'm missing something? Or is it one of those things where you're like, if it lines up, it lines up, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's the
Well,
thought
for
there?
starters,
Yeah.
yeah, for starters, like you said, Maverian Skies, especially the red version, is uh, gives us one of the most some of the most value that we can possibly get in the deck. So, you always anytime you make a Viserai deck, it's always the first card that you pop up.
Of
Well,
course.
am I playing this?
Yeah.
And the answer is usually yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of developed like to be honest, this card is specifically in the deck for Dromai because the whole ally situation and when attacks hit allies, like they get the on hit effects. So with Mobraine Skies, you're kind of looking at free rune chance. Um, but all of the cards in the deck, I kind of want to have utility in other matchups still. And if you have Mavrian Skies in your deck, I know it's a 2 block, but you can pretty much play it out in no matter what your strategy is in this deck. Because like, say you just want a Viserai trigger on a Mordred Tide turn, you play it for 0 cost. You can just throw it on the board. It makes you 2 rune chance.
Mm-hmm.
Or if if you can always arsenal it because it's not a danger to be sitting there. You can always just play it out for 0. If you happen to be attacking on a certain turn and you have a buff and it's like an Arcanite Ascendency with Dominate, odds are you're going to get the on-hit effect. And
So
even
true.
if you don't, you still got an action point. You can like play Read the Runes, or you can send like Scepter of Pain, stuff like that.
Just a one more little
So
boop.
yeah,
Yeah.
so being a one of, like, it's not the primary game plan,
Yeah.
because either we're defending or we're sending a huge attack. But it's never like, you never hate to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I feel
so
like
it's in there.
you kind of. I know whenever I see Mauvrian Skies, I'm like, oh, I might not block this turn. Like I might
Yeah.
pop off here for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If the math is right, hold on, let me check. Yeah. We can take some damage here. We can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
so
then
yeah, not
yeah.
much justification need be when you're talking to a Runeblade player about why there's a Mauvrian Skies, but definitely
Yeah.
a stark contrast to what you typically see as far as quantity goes. But obviously, anything is better than nothing when you're talking about a Mauve Skies red. So
It's an alternate game plan, but it really, really can help
we'll talk
when
about
we need to clear dragons.
the cheeky pummel then, because clearly there's one of those, and I'm curious to know if it's like, oh no, we look for this and actively attempt to make it happen, or is it again one of those things where like, dude, if the heart of the cards are with me, then the pummel will show itself when it needs to show itself.
And that statement has never been truer, to be honest with you. Because in my top 4 match of this ProQuest event, I had thrown a couple like huge attacks, and like the momentum led me right into the simple hand where I had no Rune Chants left, but I had at a 2-cost attack. So I just threw a 2-cost attack. Defender's like, oh, finally the pressure is gone, and then I just pummel it and win the game. And that's what it does. It just kind of like, being a one of, like, they don't expect it so much, and then it really just finishes games. Pummel is one of those cards in Runeblade that somebody shared with me. It's called like the pummel cycle, and it's like one pummel. Yeah, I can run one pummel, and then you go up to 3 pummels, and you're like, oh nah, man, this card is horrible, and then you kind of just keep going up and down in this cycle.
Okay.
But so we're on the one pummel of that up and down cycle right now.
When you see it, it's got to work. If it doesn't, it's fine. But at the same time, if you're seeing too many, you're expecting too much out of the pummel. The pummel can't be the strategy.
Yeah.
It's got to be in the heart of the cards for sure.
And it's a little bit meta dependent as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're facing aggressive opponents like Katsu, or say you get Red in the Ledger by Azalea, you can't play like a Sloggism into your attack, but you can play a pummel on your attack. So it's good for reasons like that.
Very true. Very true. Well, looking at the next one is one that I'm sure I know the answer to when I ask this question, but it's Arcanite Shard. And say I'm new to Viserai, or maybe I have been playing a different version of Viserai, and I'm starting to hear the buzz about ye olde TURTLEBURST, and I pop open the list and I see Arcanite Shard. Am I like, crap, I can't afford that? Do I need this card? Is it just purely like, yo, I own this, I'm gonna flex a little? Or is it...
Yeah, it's, no shot. It's totally unnecessary.
Okay,
Total vanity piece. Recently I was able to acquire a cold foil Arcanite Shard through numerous trades, and I had to put it in the deck, so it's there. But
naturally, yeah. When you have the shard, you play the shard. That's for sure. I mean,
you got to play the shard.
It's the Viserai specialization fable. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah. Which oddly, it actually helps out in the OTK matchups a lot, because you're likely to see it multiple times. You shuffle your deck some, so you could see it 4 or 5 times throughout the course of the game.
Yeah,
it's 5 extra Rune Chants.
Right.
And if you're racing to get to like 40 or so, then hey, that's just a bonus.
Definitely.
But at the heart of it, it could be any blue 3 block, and it usually is just another blue Amplify the Arcanite. In my standard lists.
Well, there you go, friends. If you don't own the shard, just put in a 2-cent blue, amplify
That's
the Arcanite.
That's right.
You're not gonna make as many.
No worries.
You're not gonna look as cool doing it, but it'll do something, I guess.
Yeah. At least you can block when
Yeah,
you're on death's door.
that's true. It does do that, where shard doesn't.
Yeah.
I'd rather die with a shard in hand than no shard at all.
Okay. That's valiant, man.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. The last one is Warmonger's Diplomacy, which when you're talking about Viserai, it's kind of been his kryptonite, right? You don't want as a Viserai to be played of Warmonger's Diplomacy into you. So it makes it's a kind of a bonkers theory to actually include them in a deck. So obviously we're not playing the standard Mauve, Shrill, go again, go wide kind of thing. So it doesn't affect this type of list. But does this one of come in handy? Could it have been another Dread Triptych, for instance, or is it like no? The Warmongers is kind of key.
Yes. I will just say, no matter what Viserai you're playing, Azalea is your biggest fear.
Totally.
That's the boogeyman,
dude.
When you go to bed at night. And so this deck it's okay. Some turns you want to set up. You don't need to attack every single turn. So if you play a Warmonger's Diplomacy, it's detrimental to Azalea's game plan, for instance. But on your turn, you can probably make 3-4 Rune Chants and then set a defense reaction. And you're kind of loving life. You're like, okay, cool. I got a little breathing room.
Yeah. Just push pause for a second, everybody. I'm happy to choose peace. You don't. You hate to choose peace because you probably got 3 buffs in your hand or whatever. And
exactly.
Yeah, let's just take a breather here. Let me get some Rune Chants in me. So that makes sense. That checks out. Not a ton of explanation needed there. But one thing that we kind of slightly skipped over, but also kind of spoke about, is Arcanite Ascendency. I mean, is this just point blank? Arguably, you mentioned that this is kind of what sparked the interest. This is the deck. This is the reason
it
the
is
deck.
The cards.
Yeah.
The meta is kind of slowed down a little bit and gives you a little bit more room to play this style of building Rune Chants, and but there are still fast decks out there, and usually the ones that are like ninjas kind of chip away at you a lot. So if you get chipped away while you're building Rune Chants, the only way that you can recoup that lost value is with the on-hit effect of Arcanite Ascendency, which says that any damage that you deal to a player, to a target, create that many Rune Chants. And so that's the whole concept of this deck, is you want to play cards like Sloggism, Runic Reckoning, even Pummel, to buff the power of Arcanite Ascendancy and land those on hits, because each damage dealt is actually an extra damage, and Rune Chants also discount your next attack, so you're good to go from one turn to another and just keep repeating the process. So Arcanite Ascendancy is everything you want to do. There's 9 cards in the deck that let you find it or play it. Become the Arcanite and Rattlebones lets you get it out of graveyard. So it's really the linchpin. So I think we've made the card good.
Yeah, right. It's worth digging back out of your bulk majestic pile if you're interested in playing this kind of Viserai, because I play 2 of this list, of this card in my list, and I don't have the big buffs. But late game, there's only, like you mentioned earlier, there's only so much equipment they have. They're gonna start using it. So late game, even just a naked 5 with like 9-10 Rune Chants on it, that split damage, knowing that 3 is probably going to be or 2 is going to be unpreventable, it can sway the game. So yeah, I've become an Ascendancy believer myself. I think
I'm glad.
I fully credit you for it, because I knew that somewhere in the workings that this was like the brainchild of like, no, this is the seed. We need to water this. We need to figure out why this card is a thing. Yeah. And it seems like you nailed it too, especially with all the buffs, and like you mentioned, Runic Reckoning doing its thing and favorably, to make it cost reduced based on how many Rune Chants. And so it's, an 8 dominate is nothing to bat an eye at when you're coming with double digit
2-card hand if you got the Rune Chants.
Exactly. And you got the Tunic up or something, and then the Runic Reckoning's paid for free.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer, right? So
that's
the kind of nuts and bolts, and everything kind of works around supplementing that big pop off term, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So you mentioned it earlier, Looming Doom. So there comes a time, regardless of whether you're playing the slow burn kind of Rune Chant deck list like I am, or the Turtle Burst where you're kind of popping off and ebb and flowing, there comes a time where you question yourself, do I need the Looming Doom right now? Am I about to Looming Doom right now? And I'm just curious what your thought is, because again, we can go get this off of a Galaxia at any moment. So again, it woke up this card from being just if you draw it, you draw it. No, now we can actively go get it at the perfect time.
Yes.
Obviously, a hero that's running AB2, maybe not the best strategy to pop 10 Rune Chants on one of these. It's going to be kind of a wasted thing. But against heroes who are running AB1, which seems to be a lot of the people playing against Viserai right now, late game, it seems like this is the ticket you get to punch and say, dude, the clock is ticking right now. So I'm curious about your thoughts. Are there any like particular matchup specifics where you're like, oh no, Looming Doom is the key. Without Looming Doom, it's 10 times harder.
Yeah, totally.
What are your thoughts on the Doom?
I think people who are playing Viserai should take note of this card. Especially, it was great versus Dromai. So let me just get that out of the way. But it's so good versus Illusionist, because they have so many things with Ward that they're trying to stack out on the table. And oftentimes they are also just running AB1, so they can prevent one of the damage from Looming Doom, but that second ping of Arcane is just going to come through and tackle whatever Spectral Shield, maybe an Angel, maybe some kind of new Illusionist ally, or who knows what's coming.
They're coming
in the future.
Yeah.
So this in the Prism matchup, whether or not you are able to put a Looming Doom on the board with 7 to 10 Rune Chants is kind of the key between winning and losing. So that's interesting there, but really just anyone that you're playing, if you have been forced to kind of like, okay, I need to throw my attacks now because I'm getting a little bit too much pressure, maybe you get them down below like 8 life, 7, 8 life, something like that. And Looming Doom is what will finish the game off for you. So you're really looking for the Looming Doom, even just like 3 or 4 Rune Chants, and you slap one out there, and then you kind of make a couple more Rune Chants, and then you throw out another Looming Doom. And
just when they think they're out of the loop, here's 10 more pings of 2 coming at you.
Absolutely,
keep resetting the clock.
Yeah, and sometimes if you land a huge Arcanite Ascendency and you just make a bunch of Rune Chants, like there can be an argument for just saying, okay, Galaxia, let's go ahead and set this Looming Doom up. It's going to be pinging away every turn while I kind of like build back up and do my thing again. So it's just a great card. The artwork is amazing. The extended art, like that's one of the reasons why I always have to have at least one in my deck. So.
Right, exactly.
I mean, look at all this artwork. Are you looking at this deck list right now?
It's insane.
This Runeblade art is just amazing.
It's insane.
There's no other deck that I would rather play.
There's no other deck that has this like synergy and aesthetic that just goes so good. So we've obviously seen like a billion tier lists that are being telling Viserai here. You go down to the D tier with in the swamps with Riptide. You guys can swim and hold hands together. But I think
that's right.
Personally, that especially you taking a PQ win at the the last week where Dromai was still flying around. It's not like she was completely gone, super free open meta. That's got volumes to speak. And of course, we saw some great results at Pro Tour. Of course, there were some day 2 Viserai. So it's like, hey, this name's starting to pop up a little bit more frequently. So what are your thoughts on now that Dromai is out? Again, one of our not so fun matchups. Winnable, not the best. But now that she's completely gone, what are your thoughts on at least the next kind of few months of Viserai? Do we see him rise in popularity? Do we see him kind of take another foothold upward in that rung of popularity and competitive nature? What are your thoughts on that?
Interestingly, LSS put out an article just about the weekend. And they graciously included my, a little blurb about Viserai and put my
saw.
deck list in there.
Mhm.
But and I put it out there on X, Twitter, and I've had some people message me even from like overseas, like in Japanese, and they were like, hey, nobody's playing Viserai in Japan, like, is this deck good, like asking questions
Trying to
and
get that
stuff like that.
sauce, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's pulling some people out and getting them interested in it. And to be honest with you, I think you got two options. Like, you got two options right now with Viserai. You got TURTLEBURST, or, well, you got three options really. You got you've got your Scrooge McRune list,
Yeah, yeah.
which trades in some of the buffs for defensive options, which it's going to be good into the warriors that are popular, like Axis, Doranthea, etc.
Mhm.
You've got the ProQuest lists that were either running Reaping Blade or Nebula Blade, and I just got to do a quick shout out to Butterfly, who made that
Totally.
Nebula Blade list, because I know he put in an equal amount of effort in getting his list together, all the
Absolutely.
matchups, everything.
Yeah.
I just, like, I could feel it when he was putting it out there and sharing with us on the Viserai, thread.
Oh yeah.
He's put in the work on that, and he figured out the ratios, and that deck sings too.
Mhm.
So you have to take a look at your meta and see what you're going to be playing, and decide, just which one's best for you. But I would argue that right now is a great time to play TURTLEBURST, OTK, because you're looking at the popular decks, and in my PQ, I went up against two Victors and two Teklevosson's a little bit off. Maybe he gets stronger. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But regardless, you're kind of looking at these more defensive decks, and our decks can really abuse decks that want to be blocking, because you got all those clash cards in your deck. Well, what if I don't block the entire game?
Mhm.
Or what if I don't attack and you don't get to block with them the entire game?
Right, right. That's so
Same
true.
for like Valiant. Same for like Valiant Dynamos. That card is amazing. It's like Crown of Seeds. You get like 14 value over the course of a game.
Mhm.
Well, what if you only give them like one value, right?
Mhm.
So, what if you don't get to use any of those defense reactions? So at least, these types of builds of Viserai have a really strong game into those types of game plans. And on the flip side of that, we're about to see a new illusionist come part the Mistveil, and since the dawn of time, I would say that Runeblade has been meant to be Illusionist's counter. Just as we don't like to see Rangers and Azalea,
Mhm.
Illusionists aren't supposed to like to see us either. So I think Viserai has a really strong place, and it should continue to have a strong place. At least one of these deck lists going through the next couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, and if anything, it's going to cause the dark horse effect, and just throw people for a loop, and saying, your opponent flips Viserai and you're like, dude, what do I side in? Are you the OTK?
Yeah.
Are you going to try to pummel me? Are you going to
finally got there?
Are you going to flip Nebula Blade, Reaping Blade? What are you going to do to me? And if you're interested in checking out this deck, there's going to be a link down in the description for you to check out. Also, the channel to Adam's YouTube channel, Chants and Daggers, which is, again, we'll reiterate, tons of gameplay, lots of in-depth Viserai stuff. I mean, if you're into this kind of thing, you're going to want to click the link and go to his channel and do the stuff, right? So before we head out, we'll just, obviously, thank you so much. But before we head out, do you have any plugs or anything you want to part with? Any parting words?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I guess thanks to Chupacabra Games for hosting a great ProQuest event. Thanks to my local game store, Good Games in Chicago here. We've got a smashing good team of people that come out every week and play on the weekly. So Brian Gottlieb stopped in one time, I think. No, he was in town, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So we invite you to come play. And I'm not gonna send too many shout outs out there, but I
As many as
also
you'd like,
appreciate I also appreciate everyone in the Viserai thread of the Discord, who have kind of like thrown ideas my way and been really interactive and helped us crack this list.
Thank you so much, man. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a like and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. And also, again, go subscribe to Chants and Daggers. Adam's a cool dude. Until next time, we'll see you later.